Oh, 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 oh. Hey, sorry for the wait. Oh, I'm still a bit. Oh, Tsuki. Oh my God! Thank you for resubscribing. It's already been 3 months, really? Wow, wow, that's a long time. It's seriously quite a long time. I didn't realize it was that long already. Wow. Oh my God. That's like that's like a whole quarter. Wow. Wow, the new pouch emote wasn't approved yet, it seems. Twitch is slow. Oh, Goatee! Jade. Oh, I thought I turned those off. What the? I'm sorry, sound alerts should be turned off for today. Thank you for reminding me. I shall promptly promptly fix that. Yeah, all good, all good. It's not your fault that I didn't turn it off. It's not your fault. I would haven't started reading yet, so it's all good. How are you doing, Jade? How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I totally forgot to turn off all the redeems that are not supposed to be there today. Which is like almost all of the redeems. Okay. It should be right now. You're doing good. That's nice. Oh gosh. Sorry for the delay today. Uh I didn't want to get out of bed today. So I'm a bit late. And still I'm very much in sleep mode. Please forgive me for that. Oh, I need a whole lot of time today to just get everything how it's supposed to be. Oh my God. Okay, okay. I think that should be it. Should we start? You forgot to sleep, or you forgot to stream? Yeah, please don't forget to sleep. Okay, okay. Um, I do reckon that sadly Imiko will not be here. She's probably sleeping, even though she's the one why I even chose this book. Well, anyways, I don't think I mean, I know the story. I don't think I have ever read the full thing. So, I'm in for a treat, at least. And maybe you are too. I hope I will find places to good places to take breaks. But it's a whole different format, so it should be okay. Oh wait, I will turn down the BGM and you get all comfy, and then we shall start reading, okay? Okay. Oh, but before that, let me just check one thing. Because Those are probably not how they're supposed to be. Yeah, that's what I thought. There they are. Okay. Now if you want to head pet me, you can. Also, I should rearrange those later. Okay. Now get comfy. For the ones who are about to sleep, get comfy in bed. And thank you, Chick. And let's start reading. Daddy Longlegs. To you. Blue Wednesday. The first Wednesday in every month was a perfectly awful day. A day to be awaited with dread, endured with courage, and forgotten with haste. Every floor must be spotless, every chair dustless, and every bed without a wrinkle. 97 squirming little orphans must be scrubbed and combed and buttoned into freshly starched ginghams, and all 97 reminded of their manners and told to say, "Yes, sir," "No, sir," whenever a trustee spoke. It was a distressing time, and poor Jerusha Abbott, being the oldest orphan, had to bear the brunt of it. But this particular first Wednesday, like its predecessors, finally dragged itself to a close. Jerusha escaped from the pantry, where she had been making sandwiches for the asylum's guests, and turned upstairs to accomplish her regular work. Her special care was room F, where 11 little tots, from 4 to 7, occupied 11 little cots set in a row. Jerusha assembled her charges, straightened their rumpled frocks, wiped their noses, and started them in an orderly and willing line towards the dining room to engage themselves for a blessed half-hour with bread and milk and prune pudding. Then she dropped down on the window seat and leaned throbbing temples against the cool glass. She had been on her feet since 5 that morning, doing everybody's bidding, scolded and hurried by a nervous matron. Mrs. Lippett, behind the scenes, did not always maintain that calm and pompous dignity with which she faced an audience of trustees and lady visitors. Jerusha gazed across a broad stretch of frozen lawn, bay on the tall iron paling that marked the confines of the asylum, down undulating ridges sprinkled with country estates, to the spires of the village rising from the midst of bare trees. The day was ended, quite successfully, so far as she knew. The trustees and the visiting committee had made their rounds, and read their reports, and drunk their tea, and now were hurrying home to their own cheerful firesides, to forget their bothersome little charges for another month. Jerusha leaned forward, watching with curiosity, with a touch of wistfulness, the stream of carriages and automobiles that rolled out of the asylum gates. In imagination she followed first one equipage, then another, to the big houses dotted along the hillside. She pictured herself in a fur coat and a velvet hat trimmed with feathers, leaning back in the seat and nonchalantly murmuring "home" to the driver. But on the dorsal of her home the picture grew blurred. Jerusha had an imagination. An imagination, Mrs. Lippett told her, that would get her into trouble if she didn't take care. But keen as it was, it could not carry her bay on the front porch of the houses she would enter. Poor, eager, adventurous little Jerusha, in all her 17 years, had never stepped inside an ordinary house. She could not picture the daily routine of those other human beings, who carried on their lives undiscommoded by orphans. Jerusha, but you are wanted in the office, and I think you'd better hurry up. Tommy Dillon, who had joined the choir, came singing up the stairs and down the corridor, his chant growing louder as he approached room F. Jerusha wrenched herself from the window and refaced the troubles of life. Who wants me? She cut into Tommy's chant with a note of sharp anxiety. Mrs. Lippett in the office, and I think she's mad. Man. Tommy piercingly intoned, but his accent was not entirely malicious. Even the most hardened little orphan felt sympathy for an erring sister who was summoned to the office to face an annoyed matron. And Tommy liked Jerusha, even as she did sometimes jerk him by the arm and nearly scrap his nose off. Jerusha went without comment, but with two parallel lines on her brow. What could have gone wrong, she wondered? Were the sandwiches not thin enough? Were there shells in the nut cakes? Had a lady visitor seen the hole in Susie Hawthorne's stocking? Had, oh horrors, one of those cherubic little babies in her own room sauced a trustee? The long lower hall had not been lighted, and as she came downstairs, as the last trustee stood on the point of departure in the open door that led to the porte cochere, Jerusha caught only a fleeting impression of the man, and the impression consisted entirely of tallness. He was waving his arm towards an automobile waiting on the curved drive. As it sprang into motion and approached, head-on for an instant, the glaring headlights threw his shadow sharply against the wall inside. The shadow pictured grotesquely elongated legs and arms that ran along the floor and up the wall of the corridor. It looked, for all the world, like a huge, wavering daddy-long-legs. Jerusha's anxious frown gave place to a quick laughter. She was by nature a sunny soul, had always snatched the tiniest excuse to be amused. If one could derive any sort of entertainment out of the oppressive fact of a trustee, it was something unexpected to the good. She advanced to the office, quite cheered by the tiny episode, and presented a smiling face to Mrs. Lippett. To her surprise, the matron was also, if not exactly smiling, at least appreciably affable. She wore an expression almost as pleasant as the one she donned for visitors. "Sit down, Jerusha. I have something to say to you." Jerusha dropped into the nearest chair and waited with a touch of breathlessness. An automobile flashed past the window. Mrs. Lippett glanced after it. "Did you notice the gentleman who has just gone?" "I saw his bag." "He is one of our most influential trustees, and has given large sums of money toward the asylum support. I am not at liberty to mention his name. He expressly stipulated that he was to remain unknown." Jerusha's eyes widened slightly. She was not accustomed to being summoned to the office to discuss the eccentricities of trustees with the matron. "This gentleman has taken an interest in several of our boys. You remember Charles Benton and Henry Fries? They were both sent through college by this trustee, and both have repaid with hard work and success the money that was so generously expended. Other payment the gentleman does not wish. Heretofore, his philanthropies have been directed solely towards the boys. I have never been able to interest him in the slightest degree in any of the girls in the institution, no matter how deserving. He does not, I may tell you, care for girls." "No, ma'am," Jerusha murmured, since some reply seemed to be expected at this point. "Today, at a regular meeting, the question of your future was brought up." Mrs. Lippett allowed a moment of silence to fall, then resumed in a slow, placid manner, extremely trying to her hearer's suddenly tightening nerves. "Usually, as you know, the children are not kept after they are 16, but an exception was made in your case. You had finished our school at 14, and having done so well in your studies, not always, I must say, in your conduct, it was determined to let you go on in the village high school. Now you're finishing that, and of course the asylum cannot be responsible any longer for your support. As it is, you have had 2 years more than most." Mrs. Lippett overlooked the fact that Jerusha had worked hard for her board during those years, that the convenience of the asylum had come first and her education second, that on days like the present she was kept at home to scrub. As I say, the question of your future was brought up, and your record was discussed, thoroughly discussed. Mrs. Lippert brought accusing eyes to bear upon the prisoner in the dark, and the prisoner looked guiltily, because it seemed to be expected, not because she could remember any strikingly black pages in her record. Of course, the usual disposition of one in your place would be to put you in a position where you could begin to work, but you have done well in school in certain branches. It seems that your work in English has even been brilliant. Miss Pritchard, who is on our visiting committee, is also on the school board. She has been talking with your rhetoric teacher and made a speech in your favor. She also read aloud an essay that you had written entitled Blue Wednesday. Jerusha's guilty expression this time was not assumed. It seems to me that you showed little gratitude in holding up to a ridiculous institution that has done so much for you. Had you not managed to be funny, I doubt if you would have been forgiven. But fortunately for you, that is, the gentleman who has just gone, appears to have an immoderate sense of humor. On the strength of that impertinent paper, he has offered to send you to college. To college? Jerusha's eyes grew big. Mrs. Lippert nodded. He waited to discuss the terms with me. They are unusual. The gentleman, I may say, is erratic. He believes that you have originality, and he is planning to educate you to become a writer. A writer? Jerusha's mind was numbed. She could only repeat Mrs. Lippert's words. That is his wish. Whether anything will come of it, the future will show. He is giving you a very liberal allowance, almost for a girl who has never had any experience in taking care of money, too liberal. But he planned the matter in detail, and I did not feel free to make any suggestions. You are to remain here through the summer, and Miss Pritchard has kindly offered to superintend your outfit. Your board and tuition will be paid directly to the college. You will receive in addition, during the 4 years you are there, an allowance of $35 a month. This will enable you to enter on the same standing as the other students. The money will be sent to you by the gentleman's private secretary once a month, and in return you will write a letter of acknowledgment once a month. That is, you are not to thank him for the money. He doesn't care to have that mentioned, but you are to write a letter telling of the progress in your studies and the details of your daily life. Just such a letter as you would write to your parents if they were living. These letters will be addressed to Mr. John Smith and will be sent in care of the secretary. The gentleman's name is not John Smith, but he prefers to remain unknown. To you, he will never be anything but John Smith. His reason in requiring the letters is that he thinks nothing so fosters facility in literary expression as letter writing. Since you have no family with whom to correspond, he desires you to write in this way. Also, he wishes to keep track of your progress. He will never answer your letters, nor in the slightest particular take any notice of them. He detests letter writing and does not wish it to become a burden. If any point should ever arise where an answer would seem to be imperative, such as in the event of your being expelled, which I trust will not occur, you may correspond with Mr. Griggs, his secretary. These monthly letters are absolutely obligatory on your part. They are the only payment that Mr. Smith requires, so you must be as punctilious in sending them as though it were a bill that you were paying. I hope that they will always be respectful in tone and will reflect credit on your training. You must remember that you are writing to a trustee of the John Grier Home. Jerusha's eyes longingly sought the door. Her head was in a whirl of excitement, and she wished only to escape from Mrs. Lippett's platitudes and think. She rose and took a tentative step backwards. Mrs. Lippett detained her with a gesture. It was an oratorical opportunity not to be slighted. I trust that you are properly grateful for this very rare good fortune that has befallen you. Not many girls in your position ever have such an opportunity to rise in the world. You must always remember. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I think, if that's all, I must go and sew a patch on Freddie Perkins' trousers. The door closed behind her, and Mrs. Lippett watched it with dropped jaw, her peroration in mid-air. Oh gosh, I need to take a drink. I'm sorry. The letters of Mr. Wisher Abbott to Mr. Daddy Longlegs Smith. 215 Ferguson Hall, 24th September. Dear kind trustee who sends orphans to college, here I am. I traveled yesterday for 4 hours in a train. It's a funny sensation, isn't it? I never rode on one before. College is the biggest, most bewildering place. I get lost whenever I leave my room. I will write you a description later, when I'm feeling less muddled. Also, I will tell you about my lessons. Classes don't begin until Monday morning, and this is Saturday night. But I wanted to write a letter first to get acquainted. It seems queer to be writing letters to somebody you don't know. It seems queer for me to be writing letters at all. I've never written more than 3 or 4 in my life, so please overlook it if these are not a model kind. Before leaving yesterday morning, Mrs. Lippett and I had a very serious talk. She told me how to behave all the rest of my life, and especially how to behave towards the kind gentleman who is doing so much for me. I must take care to be very respectful. But how can one be very respectful to a person who wishes to be called John Smith? Why couldn't you have picked out a name with a little personality? I might as well write letters to Dear Hitching Post or Dear Clothes Prop. I have been thinking about you a great deal this summer. Having somebody take an interest in me after all these years makes me feel as though I had found a sort of family. It seems as though I belong to somebody now, and it's a very comfortable sensation. I must say, however, that when I think about you, my imagination has very little to work upon. There are just 3 things that I know. 1. You're tall. 2. You're a witch. 3. You hate girls. I suppose I might call you Dear Mr. Girl Hater. Only that's rather insulting to me. Or Dear Mr. Witchman. But that's insulting to you, as though money were the only important thing about you. Besides, being rich is such a very external quality. Maybe you won't stay rich all of your life. Lots of very clever men get smashed up in Wall Street, but at least you will stay tall all your life. So I've decided to call you Dear Daddy Longlegs. I hope you won't mind. It's just a private pet name we won't tell Mrs. Lippett. The 10 o'clock bell is going to ring in 2 minutes. Our day is divided into sections by bells. We eat and sleep and study by bells. It's very enlivening. Enlivening? I feel like a fire hose all of the time. There it goes. Lights out. Good night. I observe with what precision I obey rules, due to my training in the John Grier Home. Yours most respectfully, Jerusha Abbott. To Mr. Daddy Longlegs Smith, 1st October. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I love college, and I love you for sending me. I'm very, very happy and so excited every moment of the time that I can scarcely sleep. You can't imagine how different it is from the John Grier Home. I never dreamed there was such a place in the world. I'm feeling sorry for everybody who isn't a girl and who can't come here. I'm sure the college you attended when you were a boy couldn't have been so nice. My room is up in a tower that used to be the contagious ward before they built a new infirmary. There are 3 other girls on the same floor of the tower, a senior, who wears spectacles and is always asking us please to be a little more quiet, and 2 freshmen named Sally McBride and Julia Woodledge Pendleton. Sally has red hair and a turned-up nose and is quite friendly. Julia comes from one of the first families in New York and hasn't noticed me yet. They room together, and the senior and I have singles. Usually, freshmen can't get singles. They're very scarce, but I got one without even asking. I suppose the registrar didn't think it would be right to ask a properly brought up girl to room with a foundling. You see, there were advantages. My room is on the northwest corner, with 2 windows and a view. After you've lived in a ward for 18 years with 20 roommates, it is restful to be alone. This is the first chance I've ever had to get acquainted with Jerusha Abbott. I think I'm going to like you. Do you think you are? Tuesday. They are organizing the freshman basketball team, and there's just a chance that I shall get in it. I'm little, of course, but terribly quick and wiry and tough. While the others are hopping about in the air, I can dodge under their feet and grab the ball. It's loads of fun practicing. Out in the athletic field in the afternoon with the trees all red and yellow, and the air full of the smell of burning leaves, and everybody laughing and shouting. These are the happiest girls I ever saw, and I am the happiest of all. I meant to write a long letter and tell you all the things I'm learning. Mrs. Lippett said you wanted to know. But the 7th hour has just rung, and in 10 minutes I'm due at the athletic field in gymnasium clothes. Don't you hope I'll get in the team? Yours always, Jerusha Abbott. P.S. 9 o'clock. Sally McBride just poked her head in at my door. This is what she said. I'm so homesick that I simply can't stand it. Do you feel that way? I smiled a little and said no. I thought I could pull through. At least homesickness is one disease that I've escaped. I never heard of anybody being asylum sick. Did you? 10th October. Dear Daddy Longlegs, did you ever hear of Michelangelo? He was a famous artist who lived in Italy in the Middle Ages. Everybody in English literature seemed to know about him, and the whole class laughed because they thought he was an archangel. He sounds like an archangel, doesn't he? The trouble with college is that you're expected to know such a lot of things you've never learned. It's very embarrassing at times. But now, when the girls talk about things that I never heard of, I just keep still and look them up in the encyclopedia. I made an awful mistake the first day. Somebody mentioned Maurice Maeterlinck, and they asked if she was a freshman. The joke has gone all over college. But anyway, I'm just as bright in class as any of the others, and brighter than some of them. Do you care to know how I furnished my room? It's a symphony in brown and yellow. The walls were tinted buff, and I've bought yellow denim curtains and cushions and a mahogany desk, second-hand for $3, and a rattan chair and a brown rug with an ink spot in the middle. I stand the chair over the spot. The windows are up high. You can't look out from an ordinary seat. But I unscrewed the looking glass from the back of the bureau, upholstered the top, and moved it up against the window. It's just the right height for a window seat. You pull out the drawers like steps and walk up. Very comfortable. Sally McBride helped me choose the things at the senior auction. She has lived in the house all her life and knows about furnishing. You can't imagine what fun it is to shop and pay with a real $5 bill and get some change when you've ever had more than a few cents when you've never had more than a few cents in your life. I assure you, Daddy dear, I do appreciate that allowance. Sally is the most entertaining person in the world, and Julia Rutledge Pendleton the least so. It's queer what a mixture the registrar can make in the matter of roommates. Sally thinks everything is funny, even flunking, and Julia is bored at everything. She never makes the slightest effort to be amiable. She believes that if you're a Pendleton, that fact alone admits you to heaven without any further examination. Julia and I were born to be enemies. And now I suppose you have been waiting very impatiently to hear what I am learning? 1. Latin. Second Punic War. Hannibal and his forces pitched camp at Lake Trasimenus last night. They prepared an ambuscade for the Romans, and the battle took place at the 4th watch this morning. Romans in retreat. 2. French. 24 pages of Three Musketeers and third conjugation, irregular verbs. 3. Geometry. Finished cylinders, now doing cones. 4. English. Studying exposition. My style improves daily in clearness and brevity. 5. Physiology. Reach the digestive system. Bile and the pancreas next time. Yours on the way to being educated, Jerusha Abbott. P.S. I hope you never touch alcohol, Daddy. It does dreadful things to your liver. Short water break. Please, you also remember to drink, okay? Wednesday. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I've changed my name. I'm still Jerusha in the catalog, but I'm Judy everywhere else. It's really too bad, isn't it? To have to give yourself the only pet name you ever had. I didn't quite make up to Judy, though. That was Freddie Perkins. That's what Freddie Perkins used to call me before he could talk plainly. I wish Mrs. Lippett would use a little more ingenuity about choosing babies' names. She gets the last names out of the telephone book. You'll find Abbott on the first page, and she picks the Christian names up anywhere. She got Jerusha from Tombstone. I've always hated it, but I rather like Judy. It's such a silly name. It belongs to the kind of girl I'm not, a sweet little blue-eyed thing, petted and spoiled by all the family, who roams her way through life without any cares. Wouldn't it be nice to be like that? Whatever faults I may have, no one can ever accuse me of having been spoiled by my family. But it's great fun to pretend I've been. In the future, please always address me as Judy. Do you want to know something? I have 3 pairs of kid gloves. I've had knitted mittens before from the Christmas tree, but never real kid gloves with the 5 fingers. I take them out, try them on every little while. It's all I can do not to wear them to classes. Dinner bell, goodbye. Friday. What do you think, Daddy? The English instructor said that my last paper shows an unusual amount of originality. She did, truly. Those were her words. It doesn't seem possible, does it, considering the 18 years of training that I've had? The aim of the John Grier Home, as you doubtless know and heartily approve of, is to turn the 97 orphans into 97 twins. The unusual artistic ability which they exhibit was developed at an early age through drawing chalk pictures of Mrs. Lippett on the woodshed door. I hope that I don't hurt your feelings when I criticize the home of my youth. But you have the upper hand, you know, for if I become too impertinent, you can always stop payment of your checks. This isn't a very polite thing to say, but you can't expect me to have any manners. A foundling asylum isn't a young ladies' finishing school. You know, Daddy, it isn't the work that is going to be hard in college. It's the play. Half the time I don't know what the girls are talking about. The jokes seem to relate to a past that everyone but me has shared. I'm a foreigner in the world and I don't understand the language. It's a miserable feeling. I've had it all my life. At the high school the girls would stand in groups and just look at me. I was queer and different and everybody knew it. I could feel John Grier Home written on my face. And then a few charitable ones would make a point of coming up and saying something polite. I hated every one of them, the charitable ones most of all. Nobody here knows that I was brought up in an asylum. I told Sally McBride that my mother and father were dead, and that a kind old gentleman was sending me to college, which is entirely true so far as it goes. I don't want you to think I am a coward, but I do want to be like the other girls, and the dreadful home looming over my childhood is the one great big difference. If I can turn my back on that and shut out the remembrance, I think I might be just as desirable as any other girl. I don't believe there's any real underneath difference, do you? Anyway, Sally McBride likes me. Yours ever, Judy Abbott. Saturday morning. I've just been reading this letter over, and it sounds pretty uncheerful. But can't you guess that I have a special topic due Monday morning and a review in geometry? And a very sneezy cold. Sunday. I forgot to post this yesterday, so I will add an indignant postscript. We had a bishop this morning, and what do you think he said? The most beneficial promise made us in the Bible is this: the poor you have always with you. They were put here in order to keep us charitable. The poor, please observe, being a sort of useful domestic animal. If I hadn't grown into such a perfect lady, I should have gone up after service and told them what I thought. 25th October. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I'm in a basketball team, and you ought to see the bruise on my left shoulder. It's blue and mahogany, with little streaks of orange. Julia Pendleton tried for the team, but she didn't get in. Hooray! You see what a mean disposition I have. College gets nicer and nicer. I like the girls and the teachers and the classes and the campus and the things to eat. We have ice cream twice a week, and we never have cornmeal mush. You only wanted to hear from me once a month, didn't you? And I've been peppering you with letters every few days. But I've been so excited about all these new adventures that I must talk to somebody, and you're the only one I know. Please excuse my exuberance. I'll settle pretty soon. If my letters bore you, you can always toss them into the wastebasket. I promise not to write another till the middle of November. Yours most lucratiously, Judy Abbott. 15th November. Dear Daddy Longlegs, listen to what I've learned today. The area of the convex surface of the frustum of a regular pyramid is half the product of the sum of the perimeters of its base by the altitude of either of its trapezoids. It doesn't sound true, but it is. I can prove it. You've never heard about my clothes, have you, Daddy? 6 dresses, all new and beautiful, and bought for me. Not handed down from somebody bigger. Perhaps you don't realize what a climax that marks in the career of an orphan? You gave them to me, and I am very, very, very much obliged. It's a fine thing to be educated, but nothing compared to the dizzying experience of owning 6 new dresses. Miss Pritchard, who is on the visiting committee, picked them out. Not Mrs. Lippett, thank goodness. I have an evening dress, pink mull over silk, perfectly beautiful in that, and a blue church dress, and a dinner dress of red veiling with oriental trimming. Makes me look like a gypsy. And another of rose-colored chalice, and a grey street suit, and an everyday dress for classes. That wouldn't be an awfully big wardrobe for Julia Rutledge Pendleton, perhaps, but for Jerusha Abbott, oh my. I suppose you're thinking now what a frivolous, shallow little beast she is, what a waste of money to educate a girl. But, Daddy, if you'd been dressed in checked ginghams all your life, you'd appreciate how I feel. And when I started to the high school, I entered upon another period even worse than the checked ginghams. The poor box. You can't know how I dreaded appearing in school in those miserable poor box dresses. I was perfectly sure to be put down in class next to the girl who first owned my dress. She would whisper and giggle and point it out to the others. The bitterness of wearing your enemy's cast-off clothes eats into your soul. If I wore silk stockings for the rest of my life, I don't believe I could obliterate the scar. Oh, hello, Sticky. Thank you. Channel made it for me. I can only use audio lip sync and autoblink because I don't have the equipment to use more. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going for now. Latest war bulletin. Views from the scene of action. At the fourth watch on Thursday, the 13th of November, Hannibal routed the advance guard of the Romans and led the Carthaginian forces over the mountains into the plains of Casilium. A cohort of light-armed Numidians engaged the infantry of Quintus Fabius Maximus. Two battles and light skirmishing. Romans repulsed with heavy losses. I have the honor of being your special correspondent from the front, J. Abbott. P.S. I know I'm not to expect any letters in return, and I've been warned not to bother you with questions. But tell me, Daddy, just this once, are you awfully old or just a little old? Are you perfectly bald or just a little bald? It is very difficult thinking about you in the abstractal, like a theorem in geometry. Given a tall, rich man who hates girls, but is very generous to one quite a pertinent girl, what does he look like? RSVP 19th December. Dear Daddy Longlegs, you never answered my question, and it was very important. Are you bald? I have it planned exactly what you look like, very satisfactorily, until I reach the top of your head, and then I am stuck. I can't decide whether you have white hair or black hair, or sort of sprinkly grey hair, or maybe none at all. Here is your portrait. But the problem is, shall I add some hair? Would you like to know what color your eyes are? They're grey, and your eyebrows stick out like a porch roof. Beetling, they're called in novels. And your mouth is a straight line with a tendency to turn down at the corners. Oh, you see, I know. You're a snappy old thing with a temper. Chapel Bell. Thank you for the hydrate. "9:45 p.m. I have a new unbreakable rule. Never, never to study at night, no matter how many written reviews are coming in the morning. Instead, I read just plain books. I have to, because there are 18 blank years behind me. You wouldn't believe, Daddy, what an abyss of ignorance my mind is. I am just realizing the depths myself. The things that most girls with a properly assorted family and a home and friends and a library know by absorption, I have never heard of. For example, I never read Mother Goose or David Copperfield, or Ivanhoe, or Cinderella, or Bluebeard, or Robinson Crusoe, or Jane Eyre, or Alice in Wonderland, or a word of Rudyard Kipling. I didn't know that Henry VIII was married more than once, or that Shelley was a poet. I didn't know that people used to be monkeys, and that the Garden of Eden was a beautiful myth. I didn't know that RLS stood for Robert Louis Stevenson, or that George Eliot was a lady. I had never seen a picture of the Mona Lisa, and it's true, but you won't believe it, I had never heard of Sherlock Holmes. Now I know all of these things and a lot of others besides, but you can see how much I need to catch up. And oh, but it's fun! I look forward all day to evening, and then I put an engaged on the door, and get into my nice wet bathrobe and furry slippers, and pile all the cushions behind me on the couch, and light the brass student lamp at my elbow, and read and read and read. One book isn't enough. I have four going at once. Just now there are Tennyson's poems, and Vanity Fair, and Kipling's Plain Tales, and, don't laugh, Little Women. I find that I am the only girl in college who wasn't brought up on Little Women. I haven't told anybody, though that would stamp me as a queer. I just quietly went and bought it with $1.12 of my last month's allowance. The next time somebody mentions pickled lines, I'll know what she's talking about. 10 o'clock bell. This is a very interrupted letter. Saturday. Sir, I have the honor to report fresh explorations in the field of geometry. On Friday last, we abandoned our former works in parallelepipeds and proceeded to truncated prisms. We are finding the road rough and very uphill. Sunday. The Christmas holidays begin next week. and the trunks are up. The corridors are so filled up that you can hardly get through, and everybody is so bubbling over with excitement that studying is getting left out. I'm going to have a beautiful time on vacation. There's another freshman who lives in Texas staying behind. We are planning to take long walks, and if there's any ice, learn to skate. Then there's still the whole library to be read, and 3 empty weeks to do it in. Goodbye, Daddy. I hope that you are feeling as happy as yours ever, Judy. P.S. Don't forget to answer my question. If you don't want the trouble of writing, have your secretary telegraph. You can just say Mr. Smith is quite bald, or Mr. Smith is not bald, or Mr. Smith has white hair, and you can deduct the 25 cents out of my allowance. Goodbye till January, and Merry Christmas. Towards the end of the Christmas vacation. Exact date unknown. Dear Daddy Longlegs, is it snowing where you are? All the world that I see from my tower is draped in white, and the flakes are coming down as big as popcorns. It's late afternoon. The sun is just setting, a cold yellow color, behind some colder violet hills, and I am up in my window seat using the last light to write to you. Your 5 gold pieces were a surprise. I'm not used to receiving Christmas presents. You've already given me such lots of things, everything I have, that I don't quite feel that I deserve extras. But I like them just the same. Do you want to know what I bought with my money? First, a silver watch in a leather case to wear on my wrist and get me to recitations in time. Second, Matthew Arnold's poems. Third, a hot water bottle. Fourth, a steering my My tower is cold. And fifth, 500 sheets of yellow manuscript paper. I'm going to commence being an author pretty soon. Sixth, a dictionary of synonyms to enlarge the author's vocabulary. Seventh, I don't much like to confess this last item, but I will. A pair of silk stockings. And now, Daddy, never say I don't tell all. It was a very low motive, if you must know it, that prompted the silk stockings. Julia Pendleton comes into my room to do geometry, and she sits cross-legged on the couch and wears silk stockings every night. But just wait. As soon as she gets back from vacation, I shall go in and sit on her couch in my silk stockings. You see, Daddy, the miserable creature that I am, but at least I'm honest. And you knew already, from my asylum record, that I wasn't perfect, didn't you? To recapitulate, that's the way the English instructor begins every other sentence. I'm very much obliged for my 7 presents. I'm pretending to myself that they came in a box from my family in California. The watch is from Father, the rug from Mother, the hot water bottle from Grandmother, who is always worrying for fear I shall catch cold in this climate, the yellow paper from my little brother Harry. My sister Isabel gave me the silk stockings, and Aunt Susan and the Matthew Arnold poems. Uncle Harry, little Harry is named after him, gave me the dictionary. He wanted to send chocolates, but I insisted on synonyms. You don't object, do you, to playing the part of a composite family? And now, shall I tell you about my vacation, or are you only interested in my education as such? I hope you appreciate the delicate shade of meaning in as such. It is the latest addition to my vocabulary. The girl from Texas is named Leonora Fenton. Almost as funny as Jerusha, isn't it? I like you, but not so much as Sally McBride. I shall never like anyone so much as Sally, except you. I must always like you the best of all, because you're my whole family rolled into one. Leonora and I and 2 sophomores have walked cross-country every pleasant day and explored the whole neighborhood, dressed in short skirts and knit jackets and caps, and carrying shiny sticks to whack things with. Once we walked into town 4 miles and stopped at a restaurant where the college girls go for dinner. Boiled lobster, 35 cents, and for dessert buckwheat cakes and maple syrup, 15 cents. Nourishing and cheap. It was such a lark, especially for me, because it was so awfully different from the asylum. Oh my, sorry. I feel like an escaped convict every time I leave the campus. Before I thought, I started to tell the others what an experience I was having. The cat was almost out of the bag when I grabbed it by its tail and pulled it back. It's awfully hard for me not to tell everything I know. I'm a very confiding soul by nature. If I didn't have you to tell things to, I'd burst. We had a molasses candy pull last Friday, given by the housematron of Ferguson to the left behinds in the other halls. There were 22 of us altogether, freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors, all united in amicable accord. The kitchen is huge, with copper pots and kettles hanging in rows on the stone wall, the littlest casserole among them about the size of a wash boiler. 400 girls live in Ferguson. The chef, in a white cap and apron, fetched out 22 other white caps and aprons. I can't imagine where he got so many, and we all turned ourselves into cooks. It was great fun, though I have seen better candy. When it was finally finished, and those cells in the kitchen and the doorknobs all thoroughly sticky, we organized a procession, and still in our caps and aprons, each carrying a big fork or spoon or frying pan, we marched through the empty corridors to the officers' parlor, where half a dozen professors and instructors were passing a tranquil evening. We serenaded them with college songs and offered refreshments. They accepted politely, but dubiously. We left them sucking chunks of molasses candy, sticky and speechless. So, you see, Daddy, my education progresses. Don't you really think that I ought to be an artist instead of an author? Vacation will be over in 2 days, and I shall be glad to see the girls again. My tower is just a trifle lonely. When 9 people occupy a house that was built for 400, they do rattle around a bit. 11 pages. Poor Daddy, you must be tired. I meant this to be just a short little thank you note. But when I get started, I seem to have a ready pen. Goodbye, and thank you for thinking of me. I should be perfectly happy, except for one little threatening cloud on the horizon. Examinations come in February. Yours with love, Judy. P.S. Maybe it isn't proper to send love? If it isn't, please excuse. But I must love somebody, and there's only you and Mrs. Slipper to choose between. So you see, you'll have to put up with it, Daddy, dear, because I can't love her. On the eve. Dear Daddy Longlegs, you should see the way this college is studying. We've forgotten we ever had a vacation. 57 regular verbs have I introduced to my brain in the past 4 days. I'm only hoping they'll stay till after examinations. Some of the girls sell their textbooks when they're through with them, but I intend to keep mine. Then, after I've graduated, I shall have my whole education in a row in the bookcase. When I need to use any detail, I can turn to it without the slightest hesitation. So much easier and more accurate than trying to keep it in your head. Julia Pendleton dropped in this evening to pay a social call and stayed a solid hour. She got started on the subject of family, and I couldn't switch her off. She wanted to know what my mother's maiden name was. Did you ever hear such an impertinent question to ask of a person from a foundling asylum? I didn't have the courage to say I didn't know, so I just miserably plumbed on the first name I could think of, and it was Montgomery. Then she wanted to know whether I belonged to the Massachusetts Montgomerys or the Virginia Montgomery. My mother was a Rutherford. The family came over in the Ark and were connected by marriage with Henry the Eighth. On her father's side, they date back further than Adam. On the topmost branches of her family tree, there's a superior breed of monkeys with very fine silky hair and extra long tails. I meant to write you a nice, cheerful, entertaining letter tonight, but I'm too sleepy and scared. Freshman's lot is not a happy one. Yours about to be examined, Judy Abbott. Sunday. Dearest Daddy Longlegs, I have some awful news to tell you, but I won't begin with it. I'll try to get you in a good humor first. Jerusha Abbott has commenced to be an author. A poem entitled From My Tower, a appears in the February monthly. On the first page, which is a very great honor for a freshman, my English instructor stopped me on the way out from chapel last night and said it was a charming piece of work, except for the sixth line, which had too many feet. I will send you a copy in case you care to read it. Let me see if I can think of something else pleasant. Oh yes, I'm learning to skate and can glide about quite respectably all by myself. Also, I've learned how to slide down a rope from the roof of the gymnasium, and I can vault a bar 3 feet and 6 inches high. I hope shortly to pull up to 4 feet. We had a very inspiring sermon this morning, preached by the Bishop of Alabama. His text was, "Judge not, that ye be not judged." It was about the necessity of overlooking mistakes in others, and not discouraging people by harsh judgments. I wish you might have heard it. This is the sunniest, most blinding winter afternoon, with icicles dripping from the fir trees, and all the world bending under a weight of snow, except me. And I'm bending under a weight of sorrow. For the news, courage, Judy, you must tell. Are you surely in a good humor? I failed in mathematics and Latin prose. I'm tutoring in them, and will take another examination next month. I'm sorry if you're disappointed, but otherwise, I don't care a bit because I've learned such a lot of things not mentioned in the catalogue. I've read 17 novels and bushels of poetry, really necessary novels like Vanity Fair, Richard Feverel, and Alice in Wonderland. Also Emerson's essays, and Lockhart's Life of Scott, and the first volume of Gibson's Roman Empire, and half of Benvenuto Cellini's life. Wasn't he entertaining? He used to saunter out and casually kill a man before breakfast. So, you see, Daddy, I'm much more intelligent than if I just stuck to Latin. Will you forgive me this once, for a promise to never fail again? Yours in sackcloth, Judy. Dear Daddy Longlegs, this is an extra letter in the middle of the month because I'm rather lonely tonight. It's awfully stormy. All the lights are out on the campus, but I drank black coffee and I can't go to sleep. I had a supper party this evening, consisting of Sally and Julia and Leonora Fenton, and sardines and toasted muffins, and salad and fudge and coffee. Julia said she'd had a good time, but Sally stayed to help wash the dishes. I might, very usefully, put some time on Latin tonight, but there's no doubt about it. I'm a very languid Latin scholar. We finished Lofi and the Synecdoche, and are now engaged with Dionysitia, pronounced Dionysitia. Oh gosh, this is hard. Oh my. Oh, hello, Yuri. Should you mind, just for a little while, pretending you're my grandmother? Sally has one, and Julia and Leonora each two, and they were all comparing them tonight. I can't think of anything I'd rather have. Such a respectable relationship. So if you really don't object, when I went into town yesterday, I saw the sweetest cap of clean lace trimmed with lavender ribbon. I'm going to make you a present of it on your 83rd birthday. That's the clock in the chapel tower striking 12. I believe I am sleepy after all. Good night, Granny. I love you dearly. Judy. Hello, Yuri. Thank you for the read. Oh my. Oh, and hello everyone who came with Yuri. Thank you very much for the read, Yuri. And thanks for the follow. And oh, thank you for the bitties. Okay. Yes, I noticed eventually. Thank you for all the head pats. Reading streams are usually more head pats. Thank you. Reading streams are usually without alerts and with most redeems turned off, so that there won't be any much. No, there won't be many distractions, especially not like weird sounds in between. Let's resume reading a bit, shall we? The Ides of March. Dear DLL, I'm studying Latin prose composition. I have been studying it. I shall be studying it. I shall be about to have been studying it. When re-examination comes to 7th hour next Tuesday, and I'm going to pass or bust. So you may expect to hear from me next, whole and happy and free from conditions, or in fragments. I will write a respectable letter when it's over. Tonight I have a pressing engagement with the ablative absolute. Yours, in evident haste, J.A. 26th March. Mr. D.L.L. Smith. Sir, you never answer any questions. You never show the slightest interest in anything I do. You're probably the howardest of one of all those Howard trustees, and the reason you're educating me is not because you care a bit about me, but from a sense of duty. I don't know a single thing about you. I don't even know your name. This is very uninspiring writing to a thing. I haven't a doubt but that you throw my letters into the wastebasket without reading them. Hereafter I shall write only about work. My examinations in Latin geometry came last week. I passed them both, and am now free from conditions. Yours truly, Jerusha Abbott. 2nd April. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I am a beast. Please forget about that dreadful letter I sent you last week. I was feeling terribly lonely and miserable and sore-throaty the night I wrote. I didn't know it, but I was just sickening for tonsillitis and grippe and lots of things mixed. I'm in the infirmary now and have been here for 6 days. This is the first time they would let me sit up and have a pen and paper. The head nurse is very bossy, but I've been thinking about it all the time, and I shan't get well until you forgive me. Here's a picture of the way I look, with a bandage tied around my head and rabbit's ears. Doesn't it arouse your sympathy? I am having sublingual gland swelling, and I've been studying physiology all the year without ever hearing of sublingual glands. How futile a thing is education. I can't write any more. I get rather shaky when I sit up too long. Please forgive me for being impertinent and ungrateful. I was badly brought up. Yours with love, Judy Abbott. The Infirmary, 4th April. Dearest Daddy Longlegs, yesterday evening, just towards dark, when I was sitting up in bed, looking out at the rain and feeling awfully bored with life in a great institution, the nurse appeared with a long white box addressed to me, and filled with the loveliest pink rosebuds, and much nicer still, contained a card with a very polite message written in a funny little uphill backhand, but one which shows a great deal of character. Thank you, Daddy, 1,000 times. Your flowers make the first real, true present I ever received in my life. If you want to know what a baby I am, I lay down and cried because I was so happy. Now that I am sure you read my letters, I'll make them much more interesting, so they'll be worth keeping in a safe with wet tape around them. Only, please take them out. Take out that dreadful one and burn it up. I'd hate to think that you ever read it over. Thank you for making a very sick, cross, miserable freshman cheerful. Probably you have lots of loving family and friends, and you don't know what it feels like to be alone. But I do. Goodbye. I'll promise never to be Howard again, because now I know you're a real person. Also, I'll promise never to bother you with any more questions. Do you still hate girls? Yours forever, Judy. 8th hour, Monday. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I hope you aren't the trustee who sat on the toad. It went off, I was told, with quite a pop, so probably he was a fart tree. Do you remember the little dugout places with gratings over them by the laundry windows in John Grier home? Every spring, when the hop toad season opened, we used to form a collection of toads and keep them in those window holes, and occasionally they would spill over into the laundry, causing a very pleasurable commotion on wash days. We were severely punished for activities in this direction, but in spite of all discouragement, the toads would collect. And one day, well, I won't bore you with particulars, but somehow one of the fattest, biggest, juiciest toads got into one of those big leather armchairs in the trustees' room, and that afternoon at the trustees' meeting, but I dare say you were there and recall the rest? Looking back dispassionately after a period of time, I will say that punishment was merited, and, if I remember rightly, adequate. I don't know why I am in such a reminiscent mood, except in spring, and the reappearance of toads always awakens the old acquisitive instinct. The only thing that keeps me from starting a collection is the fact that no rule exists against it. After chapel, Thursday. What do you think is my favorite book? Just now, I mean. I change every 3 days. Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte was quite young when she wrote it, and had never been outside of Haworth churchyard. She'd never known any man in her life. How could she imagine a man like Heathcliff? I couldn't do it, and I'm quite young and never outside John Grier Asylum. I've had every chance in the world. Sometimes a dreadful fear comes over me that I'm not a genius. Will you be awfully disappointed, Daddy, if I don't turn out to be a great author? In the spring, when everything is so beautiful and green and budding, I feel like turning my back on lessons and running away to play with the weather. There's such lots of adventures out in the fields. It's much more entertaining to live books than to write them. Ow! That was a shriek which brought Sally and Julia and, for a disgusted moment, the senior from across the hall. It was caused by a centipede like this, only worse. Just as I had finished the last sentence and was thinking what to say next, plump! It fell off the ceiling and landed at my side. I tipped 2 cups off the tea table on trying to get away. Sally whacked it with the back of my hairbrush, which I shall never be able to use again, and killed the front end. At the rear 50 feet, went under the bureau and escaped. This dormitory, owing to its age and ivy-colored walls, is full of centipedes. They are dreadful creatures. I'd rather find a tiger under the bed. Friday, 9:30 p.m. Such a lot of troubles. I didn't hear the rising bell this morning. Then I broke my shoestring while I was hurrying to dress and dropped my collar button down my neck. I was late for breakfast and also for first hour recitation. I forgot to take any blotting paper, and my fountain pen leaked. On trigonometry, the professor and I had a disagreement touching a little matter of logarithms. On looking it up, I find that she was right. We had mutton stew and pipeline for lunch. Hate them both. They taste like the asylum. The post brought me nothing but bills. I must say that I never do get anything else. My family are not the kind that write. In English class this afternoon, we had an unexpected written lesson. This was it. I asked no other thing. No other was denied. I offered being for it. The mighty merchant smiled. Brazil, he twirled the button, without a glance my way. But, madam, is there nothing else that we can show today? That is a poem. I don't know who wrote it or what it means. It was simply printed out on the blackboard when we arrived. We were ordered to comment upon it. When I read the first verse, I thought I had an idea. The mighty merchant was a divinity who distributes blessings in return for virtuous deeds. But when I got to the second verse, I found him twirling a button. It seemed a blasphemous position, and I hastily changed my mind. The rest of the class was in the same predicament, and there we sat for 3/4 of an hour with blank paper and equally blank minds. Getting an education is an awfully wearing process. But this didn't end the day. There's worse to come. It rained, so we couldn't play golf, but had to go to gymnasium instead. The girl next to me banged my elbow with an Indian club. I got home to find that the box with my new blue spring dress had come, and the skirt was so tight that I couldn't sit down. Friday is sweeping day, and the maid had mixed all the papers on my desk. We had tombstone for dessert, milk and gelatin flavored with vanilla. We were capped in chapel 20 minutes later than usual to listen to a speech about womanly women, and then, just as I was settling down with a sigh of well-earned relief to the portrait of a lady, a girl named Eckerly, a dough-faced, deadly, unintermittently stupid girl sits next to me in Latin because her name begins with A. I wish Mrs. Lippett had named me Zabriskie. Came to ask if Monday's lesson commenced at paragraph 69 or 70 and stayed 1 hour. She has just gone. Did you ever hear of such a discouraging series of events? It isn't the big troubles in life that require character. Anybody can rise to a crisis and face a crushing tragedy with courage, but to meet the petty hazards of the day with a laugh, I really think that requires spirit. Did you ever hear of such a discouraging series of events? It isn't the big troubles in life that require character. Anybody can rise to a crisis and face a crushing tragedy with courage. Oh, wait. I would have read that. It's a kind of character that I am going to develop. I'm going to pretend that all life is just a game which I must play as skillfully and fairly as I can. If I lose, I am going to shrug my shoulders and laugh. Also, if I win. Anyway, I am going to be a sport. You will never hear me complain again, Daddy dear, because Julia wears silk stockings and centipedes drop off the wall. Yours ever, Judy. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the first 20 something pages of Daddy Longlegs. It's quite enjoyable to read actually. Definitely. It is quite enjoyable. I hope you all feel quite relaxed. And hope you feel quite relaxed and that the ones who have to go to sleep soon will be able to sleep nicely and maybe have some nice dreams. Thank you very much for coming by and to listen. Thanks a whole lot, Yui, for the wait. I was quite surprised. I. Oh. Melling is not. People are playing Genshin today, and I think that might be a bit too much. So for once, I will not be going to wait anyone because I don't want you to get out of this relaxed mood. So have a good night or a good day, and do remember to eat your veggies. Alright, I will see you next time. Please make sure to stay safe and warm and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.